Well, good afternoon. My name is Brett Bennett, and this is my team. We are Team SkyData, which is involved of Casey, Garrett, Sam, and Drew. And today I'm here to talk to you about how we can start saving lives and changing the world using remote-operated aircraft technology. So one of the biggest problems that's facing our nation today is forest fires and their detrimental effects into the ecosystem and how much it actually costs to fight these fires. I don't know if you guys remember the Idaho fires that happened last year, the year back. Cost almost upward of $1 billion to fight that fire alone. Also, search and rescue operations are very highly costly and can involve people from the search and rescue team getting hurt and lost as well, and it can take days, weeks even to try to find people. And then eventually involves a heartache, and we think that by using some of the technology that we believe we can help solve this problem. Also, another area that we'd like to focus on is pipeline controls. Pipelines, we have enough pipeline running the U.S. to wrap around the world twice. And these, like any other piece of metal, they rust, they corrode, they get old, and they break. Recently in Texas, we had a pipeline burst that caused this fire, and again, it's just an issue that we think that we can solve. So the solution is, we believe that by incorporating remote-operated aircraft, we can use surveying technology through infrared as well as high-definition cameras to monitor and prevent and detect these instances. It's predicted by 2020 there will be around 30,000 drones in the U.S., and we want to be on the forefront of this movement. One of the great things about the drone that we're looking at using, this is called the Penguin B model. It's a small aircraft. It's about 200 pounds. It can carry a weight of about 10 kilograms, which is enough for us to carry 2 high-resolution cameras, as well as maybe an emergency package or a system to launch flares, which I'll get into a little bit later. One of the great things about this aircraft is that we don't need a runway to take off from. We can put a mount on the top of an SUV, which is a catapult mount. It launches the aircraft runs its route, and runs its survey pattern, comes back to the vehicle using a GPS locator, flies down at about 10 miles an hour, stops, and will land directly on top of the SUV. We take the wings off, fold it up, and we're good to go for the next day. This is the gimbal mount that we want to attach to the aircraft. This allows us to get a 360-view surveillance of the ground using infrared cameras as well as high-definition cameras. So we can see here, I'm sorry the images are a little small, but we have 3 different types of infrared images. This is short range, medium range, and long range. And this is a forest fire if you were looking at it from the naked eye. So you can't really see where the heat patterns are and where the fire is spreading to tell the boots on the ground in the Forest Service. What we can do is use these scanners to find the high heat zones and tell them that's where the fire is going to spread, that's where you need to fight it. The other ones are going to dwindle out on their own. Don't waste the time and don't waste the money. So we are not military. When people hear drones, they think military a lot. That's not what we want to focus on. We want to focus on the fact that this technology can be used for humanitarian efforts. So how it started? It all started with a Business 415 project, and we had to come up with a business plan. And one of our teammates, Casey, has been a pilot for several years, and he's now getting his commercial pilot's license and kind of turned us on to this project. And he's done previous work through his company at the Pullman Airport, doing fire spotting for the Forest Service, and we were talking about it, and we realized that to do this, it's actually very cost ineffective to do fire spotting currently. Generally speaking, they have a spotter and a pilot. They go up for a few hours and they fly around and they take photos and scan for areas, but they can only be up there for about 5 hours because it's very detrimental to the pilot to fly for that long, especially when you're running S patterns and things like that with a mechanical plane. We are also working at getting involved with FEMA. I've had previous experience having to call on them from some previous employment that I've had, and we're looking to try to get involved with them for search and rescue operations as well as first response for natural disasters. Avista, Inland Power, and some other oil companies and power companies we're looking into talking with and getting involved with for pipeline controls as well as power line controls for corrosion areas that might spark fires or any other natural disasters. So some of the facts about our company and the business platform that we've developed. Currently, for a fire spotting system where you send up a single pilot with a spotter, it's about $400 an hour. Like I said, they can only fly for about 5 hours due to fatigue. We can send our drones up for $275 an hour, and we can have a 20+ hour duration of flight time, which means we can have about 15 hours of total mission time for observations, depending on where we launch the aircraft. Imagine you're lost in the snow. and you've been out there for a day, the Coast Guard, the National Guard, they're looking for you. They send a helicopter to come find you. It's about $8,000 an hour to run that helicopter. So now your life just became a math equation. How much money is it going to cost to save you? We think we can make that number much less and get as many planes in the air trying to find you and save your life before they say they want to cut the cost. And then we would use a GPS locator to send your location directly to the Coast Guard or the National Guard, and they'll send a helicopter to come and get you. So stay there, help's on the way. So some of the legal regulations, which is making this a very exciting proposition for us, is that currently in the US, you cannot have an unmanned aircraft over 50 pounds in your personal possession. There is no legal regulations for this technology yet. So because this technology is here, it's coming, it's going to be entering into the private market, the federal government has said that in 2015, in September, they're going to pass legislation to allow these larger unmanned aircraft into the private market. We want to use these next 2 years to capitalize on that time and build relationships with the proper entities to get involved in this. We've had, one of our teammates has had experience working with Federal Land Management for fire spotting. I've had a little bit of experience working with FEMA and calling on senators and trying to get past their secretaries, which is pretty tough. So we want to use these next 2 years to really focus on that and work on that and get involved as far as we can into this before the gates open up in Q3 of 2015, and we'll be ready to go, have our contracts ready, and get out on the right foot. So where we want to begin our base of operations is we want to stay in the Pacific Northwest. This is a very high fire, there's a high ecotourism level, there's a high fire level, as well as there are a lot of pipelines that come out of the Canadian area and run through this area. So we believe that by setting up operations here to begin with, we can capitalize on all three of our target markets at the same time while not spreading ourselves too thin. Our target markets, as I mentioned before, are search and rescue, wildfire spotting, and pipeline patrols. We predict that in 2015, when we begin operations, by the end of year one, we'll have a 1% market share of that region, which we believe is a conservative estimate. And I'll get into a little bit more on the financials here in a few minutes. Some long-term operations as new drone platforms are being developed for longer flight time durations. There's currently a solar-powered drone that's being developed for very long flight durations where we could do shipping lane monitoring, traffic pattern controls, record wildlife data, and use laser leveling to survey land for low-flying aircraft. Some of the competition it's very difficult to say at this moment. Right now it's heavily government influenced. There's not a lot of major companies coming up, but Washington has been pioneering this technology and saying that they want these companies to start coming to us. They opened up Moses Lake recently to start testing these aircraft and run flight patterns and test routes. So we want to stay as close to that area as possible so we can run our test routes and be okay and get as much practice as we possibly can before operations begin in September of 2015. Our cost structure. So we predict that with a 1% market share, we can get about 500 hours per month of total operational flight time, and we would charge $275 an hour. The cost, we've allocated a variable cost to operating the drones to about $160. That accounts for fuel and maintenance and upkeep of the vehicles, as well as upkeep of the transportation vehicles to get the drones to their mission site. We would like to buy a drone at least one every year, beginning in year 2 up to year 5. We have a $30K monthly fixed cost, which is just to give us a small office to keep everything together, as well as maintain some vehicles to transport these aircrafts. Financial projections, we predict a break even in 26 months after we begin operations. We have a total startup cost, so we're looking at about $680,000 to start up the company, and we will break even in 26 months, so about a little bit after 2 years. We're looking for investors. We're looking for an investor for $600,000 or 2 investors at $300,000. They'll be offered 15% of the company as well as a seat on the board. There's 2 different options that we would like to do this with. We could do a long-term payout plan where you would get your money back plus additional interest, so probably around $2 million you'd get back, or $1 million for 300, or for 300,000, $2 million for 600, sorry. Or we can give you dividends and give you a percentage of the company, and you will get a dividend payout for the rest of your life as the company grows. So if this company takes off like we hope it will, you'd be getting a nice check for the rest of your life. Some of our team's talents, I myself, I'm an accounting major and marketing major. Our resident pilot is Casey. He's also a mechanical engineer minor. And then we have many operations management teammates as well, and some of us have had past experience working in these markets. A couple of our exit strategies, in case, just to plan for the, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. So we would think about selling at year 10 to a larger company, and I know this isn't really an exit strategy, but we would liquidate our assets and cut our losses and then pay off our debt and continue on. And I think I covered everything now. And if there's, I'd like to open up for any questions.
So I'm not clear, are some of the things pre-programmed routes, or are they all ground piloted?
They are pre-programmed and manual piloted, so you can do
how does that break down? How much does a ground, what is it, what's certification to be a ground pilot, how much do they cost?
So I should have mentioned that, I'm sorry, in the legal regulations. Currently, there is no certification level for a drone operator, but the highest level of certification that we believe would be necessary would be a commercial pilot's license. Our Casey is our resident pilot. He's getting his training license very soon, and he will begin training the rest of us to begin training as pilots. As far as programming the routes can be pre-programmed depending on the customer's requests. We can also do, say, for a search and rescue operation, we can incorporate manual flight from a ground control unit, which is portable. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that earlier. We have portable ground control units capable of controlling up to 2 drones at one time.
That is in the 116 hours, the pilot time part of that, their cost?
I'm sorry.
What's the cost of a ground pilot per hour? How much are you estimating that?
We didn't allocate much of that to that, but yes,
scale of business, you're going to hire the people, right?
Yeah. So currently, the 5 of us are we allocated $2,800 a month for salary for each of us for cost of living, and we would be the operators. As far as long-term projections, we would have to incorporate those fixed costs for hiring employees.
Most likely, there's room in that variable cost per hour. Really hard to say what the maintenance cost is really going to be. I probably overestimated it a little bit, so there's probably a lot of room in there for additional
Most costs for drones should come down over time, shouldn't they?
Yes, especially since we want to purchase from the same company, and doing batch purchases, we would hope to be able to get a discount.
How does adverse weather affect?
Just like any other plane, heavy storm, something like that, we can't fly in that. But the drone is small enough, but it is heavy enough to where we can fly in medium to choppy weather. Casey would actually be better.
About 35 to 55 gusts they can handle that. Just a 200-pound drone. There's actually the VTEL. I don't know if you've ever seen the picture, but there's little servos that actually can control it a little better. And since it's automated, it can account for that weather.
Can you fly these drones at night and
Yes.
do enough surveillance that you can identify leaks in pipelines and things like that?
As far as pipeline patrols, it would be difficult to do that at night. That would be more of a daytime operation, but we would be able to do search and rescue operations during nighttime. And fire spotting, sorry.
But you can only identify the problem, then you have to send in the helicopters or whatever to pick up the folks. So you're just reporting the information to a central agency that will then take action to do whatever you can do.
Yes.
And how do you communicate that to those folks?
We would have direct communications with them through our contracts.
So their contract. You think the government's going to take more control of this as far as manufacturing and controlling these drones rather than private industry?
Currently, the smaller platform drones are all manufactured through private industry. I know the government manufactures larger drones, and they're moving towards jet engine drones as well. These are very smaller, 200-pound drones. For their applications, I don't think it would be big enough for them to be able to carry any substantial payload. I hope that answers your question.
The pipeline potential. It's interesting. Is there a special camera, or is it just a visual? You're just looking for oil on the ground?
It's just a high definition, high resolution camera, and you fly down in a low pattern, and you're looking for weak spots, rust sections, because these pipelines don't get patrolled outside. They send what's called pig.
I was going to say there's cameras they send inside.
They send inside, but they don't get to see what's happening outside, and a lot of times that rust will eat from outside, and that's what happened in the explosion in the photo I showed you earlier. So it's really a cost-benefit analysis for them. It's how it only costs them $275 an hour to run our aircraft versus $5 billion when one of them breaks. So, well, probably not $5 billion. Yeah, that was exaggerating.
I was trying to run the numbers on it.
Yeah.
Speaking of numbers, can I ask you a few numbers questions?
Sure.
Your balance sheet.
Oh, yes, the financials in the business plan that you have some major errors in them. We got them cleaned up and fixed, actually.
You have a slide on that?
No, we didn't bring a slide on that, but I have the financials on the drive. But that's probably not.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
it's very important.
Yeah.
Obviously, for investors, they're going to be numbers driven. And I'm sure Pam's going to talk about this with you a little bit as well. But it's important that that people understand right up front what your ROI is going to be.
Yeah.
And what the case is. And it's very difficult for me to figure out.
Okay.
It's in there.
Yeah.
You have to work at it. And then when you get to the financials, there were major. I mean, there was nothing. It was time, right?
Yeah.
So it was, I don't know if that was a midnight thing that you guys were pushing out, but it had that.
It was a time constraint, yeah.
You know.
And then we had more time to sit down and really focus, revamp and focus on it, and that's where we got the new investing.
So let's talk conceptually about the numbers a little bit, regardless of what the numbers are, because in here you had cash flow, okay? It was virtually the same every month of the year. And your primary market, you said, is fires, and your secondary is the search and rescue. That's seasonal business.
Yes.
Okay?
So-
and that means you're going to have a cash flow problem, during 9 months out of the year. And the other issue is, seasonal business, it's also dependent on weather. And by weather, I mean not bad weather to fly in. But if you have a wet spring and you have a cool summer, you don't have a fire season.
Yes.
How do you forecast what your revenues are going to be next year? But I'd like to see, and it's the SAR and the fire, to me, that's all spot business. That's stuff you do with your surplus capacity if you have a baseload business that you have throughout the year. So I'd like to see you have a secondary as a pipeline. I work for a pipeline company and a railroad company, right-of-way patrols and such like that. I think it's a great idea. I think you can build a business around this. But that should be your primary market. Railroad right-of-ways, pipeline right-of-ways,
Okay.
maybe forestry land, and electric utility lines.
Okay.
And it's surveying it, not just to find leaks, but I mean vegetation growth, dents in the pipeline. Maybe you can do something with the railroad tracks instead of a high rail vehicle to actually gauge the width of the railroad. And then what you do, once you develop that, then you go and you get a 3-year contract or a 5-year contract with one of these commercial companies, and you built a baseload business.
Okay.
Then you build your business around that, and it's going to be a stair step when you add contracts after that. The other problem with the forestry and the SARs, that's all government business. And I can tell you, the government doesn't pay on time always, and sometimes they might not pay you at all until the next fiscal year when they get some more money. I mean, how many times has the fire service, forestry service run out of money in their budget for the year? So you're going to have not just a cash flow problem by the timing of the work that you're doing, but a timing of the money that you get. So you're going to be sitting on a lot of working capital to get you through the lead time.
Yeah,
You got it? So I'd rather see this, I think it's a good idea, I'm pumped up about it. I'd rather see you rewrite the business plan to go after that baseload business that's going to have consistent cash throughout the year. And then your secondary market is the more spot stuff.
Thank you, that's very good.
So just ask, would those companies ever do this themselves? That's the other thing over at pipeline companies.
No, usually they don't. In fact, they often hire it out. And with the railroads, for example, they'll have union guys on a high rail vehicle going through southern Wyoming. They got to change them out every 100 miles based on the union regulations and such. But to do the overflights, inspecting the land, but also, again, the technology to inspect the track, you've got 2 years to build up. What you would do is make contacts at those companies, get to the right person, and then have them help you develop the program or their needs instead of going to them, in 2015 and saying, this is what we have. You can work with them ahead of time.
Yeah,
So what
really
you're also going to have,
capitalize.
I would imagine, as you say, 30,000 drones. You're going to have defense contractors get into this business and people like that, which are also going to have more sway with the government.
Yeah.
So, you want to focus, I think, on the more commercial companies, give you better cash flow.
Okay, great, thank you.
And as I said, I'm pumped up about this. I hope you guys rewrite this.
Yeah, we'd love to. We're all trying to make this happen. Each one of us is trying to put $20,000 to get together towards the company to get our first drone together.
Is there a market to actually lease these drones rather than upfront buy the drones?
From the company that we want to purchase this model from, you have to purchase it. It's a turnkey system. You buy it out of the box. But for future purchases from them, I believe there would be some
That GA
negotiation.
finance or GAC or one.
Absolutely.
Finance.
Just like any airline.
Okay. Great, thank you, yeah.
Do you need to buy one right off the bat, or do you just wait until the legislation goes
There's really no, it's not legal to fly right now, so
through?
it's
With
pointless to
We
fly.
just wait till-
With what's happening in Washington though, they're trying to get these operations up and running. So if we can get on that list, then maybe we can get okay to go buy one and start running test flights.
I think at some point before 2015, you
Oh, yeah.
probably need to buy one to take people out and see
Yeah.
it going, and then we can develop the technology to.
And that's why it's such a big deal over in Moses Lake. You can actually go over there and do all those flights over there. So along with Casey and then the rest of us getting our pilot's license, we would have to practice ourselves, of course, in order to execute these operations, but to also go out with potential contractors. That would be one of those vital things.
And let me tell you, the key on the spot business is that's your opportunity to do some premium pricing if needed. If, you know, if the forest fires are really bad and all the other drones are busy doing their thing, they call you up, okay, well, here's our price is double. Okay, you can take advantage of that.
That's a
Same
good
thing
idea.
same thing with the search and rescue, although if there's a 5-year-old lost in the forest, I might do that pro bono and get
Yeah.
good publicity for your company if you find it.
That's a great idea, thank you.
What about intellectual property protection?
That's a good question.
What is the?
What is it?
There's really,
I don't think we really have much intellectual property yet.
Well, where China is gearing up toward an aviation city, next year it should be very much up and running. It's about as big as Las Vegas, it's appearing out of, in the middle of Nowhereville. I was over there and I saw it, I counted 151 cranes, I think I told you this in just a short time, I was like, I can't imagine every contractor being brought in.
Yeah.
And-
What's an aviation city?
A city as big as Las Vegas to compete with America, building aviation,
Oh, so it's just a city dedicated to, wow.
to aviation.
But if it brings the price of drones down, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering what potential competition without intellectual property, would be. You're providing a service, but here comes a new market, and whenever there's a market, there will be a flood on that market. So what I'm looking at is how do you protect yourselves, and how do you protect your investors?
we want to protect ourselves over basically the next 2.5 years is really where we want to ramp up and talk to those companies, like the railroad companies and the power line companies, and get in good ties with them right now before they do, because I think that's really how we're going to protect ourselves. And if we can prove, if we go to the test site and we go fly a drone around and say, hey, this is what we can do for you, and we really put an impression on them, then we can secure their cooperation with us.
Guys, why not? So right now, none of you have qualifications to fly drones, right? With your pilot, I get it, but,
Yeah.
but why not hire somebody from the military who's got fantastic combat skills or whatever, who wants to transition to some civilian sort of.
I think the biggest thing is all of us are just really excited about this and all of us want to fly them. And we're all really involved in it. I think that's the biggest thing, but as the company grows, which we hope it does, then we would approach that. Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to fly them. Sounds like fun.
As an investor, why should I invest now? Why not wait till 2 years until the legislation is through so uncertain?
Because we have to, you can't just wait 2 years and then having legislation come through and decide, oh, we want to implement this business. We have to, buy.
That's your perspective. What about an investor's perspective? Why now?
Well, the business would be more successful if it's actually growing and kind of doing all the research been done before the regulation. And so right when the regulation passes, we have these contracts and we can go do it next day.
You might want to consider kickers or something to benefit early investors, or penalties for investing later, or something like that. I've seen literally time-based investment that reward or punish investors for putting up the money, taking more risk early. If it's all the same, I'm going to wait until the legislation is certain.
What would be a good reward to offer?
Well, literally, you can have a stair-step dividend, you can do it tons of different ways. So you can take out a lot of money. I've seen different ways.
Okay, great. Thanks, Steve.
Your dip warrant coverage or whatever.
Would you say that the, our two options, that they're not appealing enough?
I didn't understand.
Right now?
Actually, I mean, it sounded like you wanted just high-cost debt for us.
Well,
Yeah.
Option 2 is high-cost debt. Option 1 was an equity position.
Yeah, where you would have 15% of the company and a seat on the board, and you would get paid a dividend from the company for the rest of it, as long as you kept your shares.
Sure.
We also have title to the grants.
Yes, yes, yes. And if you gave us $600,000, you'd get 30% of the company, and then you only have to convince a couple of us when you want to do something. So that works out.
And those are big checks. Are you willing to break that up or let a consortium of people put in 15 each?
It would be nice to have a solid partner to work with, to collaborate with, who is excited about this as we are, but when it comes down to if it's going to make or break the business, we're willing to do that.
You want as few investors as possible.
We're open to,
And there's definitely a first mover advantage on some of
Yeah.
those. Yes.
I mean, if we would like to get a partner that would give us, as much as he possibly could, and then just be involved in the company and come around and check on things, that would be great. We're really excited about the fact that this is a great technology. It's coming, it's here now, and it's going to change the way that we conduct a lot of day-to-day operations, and we want to be at the forefront of it.
In your opinion, what is the best thing you think an investor brings?
Probably an outside opinion, whereas we're so driven that we just really are excited about it, that maybe you can get the blinders up and not think about the other small details of the business aspect that an investor would think of, because they've got literally just money on the line, whereas this is our lives. So we have a little bit, we could have more tunnel vision than the investor.
That, and if any of you were investors, you're giving us this great feedback. We're 5 college students. If we could get an investor who does know a little thing about this, their insight would be priceless.
Yeah.
What is the ROI since we don't have enough financials to go? If you're putting in 360,000, what's your ROI?
I believe we were returning at 1.2% to begin with. Off the top of my head, though, I don't want to give you a false number.
Yeah, really, your pricing, you're doing it almost on a cost plus, right?
Which ones, yeah.
Because your market's not going to be planes and stuff, it's going to be other drone companies in the future, and you really don't know how they're going to price it, right?
Yeah. So that's why when it came down to the humanitarian aspect, we wanted to be able to get as many planes in the air looking for, we started off with the search and rescue aspect, and we wanted to get as many planes in the air trying to find somebody, so we wanted to make it cost effective for them to choose using 5 of our planes versus 1 helicopter.
Yeah. As I said, the problem with that strategy
Yeah.
is you're almost sitting around waiting for someone to get lost.
Yeah, so getting into the railroad and the pipeline
Utilities.
utilities would be,
That's really good.
yeah, that's great advice, thank you.
What's the likelihood that the government's not going to approve this law, and you're going out trying to capture investors, and all of a sudden you come to September 2015, and they say, oops.
so with the current sequesters and along with the government going on, and the FAA is cutting their budget back, Obama actually pushed this legislation to go through and set money aside for the FAA to issue the 6 drone sites that they just did a couple days ago. So I think the administration really wants to make this happen, and 30,000 drones by 2020, why wouldn't America want to be on the forefront of that and maintain our competitive advantage from other
So
countries?
what do you value the whole company at?
It's like a dollar value, or?
Yes, if it's 600,000 for 30%, it's probably close to $2 million.
So our total startup cost would be $680,000 when we allocated everything. So that would be the dollar value of the company to begin with, but then after we begin operations, we were hoping, around $1 or $2 million after the first year or 2.
Sounds like you're just talking about 200,000 for the 30%.
To better assess those risks, if worst comes to worst and these don't get passed, we will just have to liquidate our assets and to give the investors money back. But that, we don't want to do that. So that's what it's going to have to come down to.
All All right, well, we're down to our last minute, so we can take about one more question if there's any more.
I'll make a comment. I don't mean to be mean-spirited or anything, but need to do a better job of proofreading your plan. It detracts from the message and such.
You did a good job.
But really,